Good evening. I'm Juan Zabala, Vice President for University Advancement. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Lamar University Digital Gatherings. Since we're practicing social distancing, we started this program to bring our Lamar University communities together to lean on the social bounds that have been such a large part of our lives. So many of our alumni, friends, and neighbors are suffering from the medical, economic, and social impact of the pandemic, and our thoughts are with all of our friends and colleagues during this really complicated time. We thank you for taking the time to join us. Our discussion this evening will focus on how the entrepreneurial and dedicated faculty of Lamar University, along with our impressive alumni, are assisting to K through 12 enterprises during this pandemic. We encourage you to post your questions, and we'll get to as many of them as we can this evening, and we'll follow up with the rest of them after the program. We're grateful that Lamar University's president, Dr. Kenneth Evans, is moderating the discussion for us this evening. Thank you and welcome, President Evans.
And co-leads a working group on application of artificial intelligence in teacher education. George received his doctorate of education degree in educational leadership here at Lamar University in 2014. He received his BS in computer science in 1990 and an MS in organizational human resource development in 1995 from Abilene Christian University. George, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. I guess after an introduction like that, I should say right up front that despite all those wonderful things, this session really isn't about me. It's about what the broader LU family is doing. There's, I guess, over 1,200 LU faculty and staff, almost 90,000 alumni. 12,000 of those are in education. And this is a small sampling of some of the amazing work that's going on among our faculty and staff and alumni. And I think even though we can't cover it all, it'll be a representative sampling of some of the larger efforts that the whole LU community is doing to help during the pandemic. And I'm sure you know that LU has a tremendous group of alumni across the world doing amazing things, and it's my honor to be able to share a little bit about what they're doing with you.
Well, thank you. Obviously, the timeliness of this topic this evening couldn't be more pressing. The pandemic has thrust most of education, K through 12 and post-secondary, into a new modality. For us at LU, on March 12th, we announced a delay by 1 week in returning from spring break, moving our curriculum online at that time. And then on March 19th, we made it clear that we certainly weren't going to be able to execute delivery of education over the semester, and so therefore moved everything online for the remaining part of the spring. Just recently, we made the announcement that all of summer school would be online as well. Now, truth be told, this is not the first time, it's not the first rodeo for Lamar in doing this. Well, obviously, Harvey pushed us online for a period of time, as did Imelda. However, nothing quite like this. So with that, George, let me ask you this. Ongoing school closures have been a major part of the government's social distancing actions during the pandemic. What have you seen as the general response of K through 12 schools?
It's a great question. I think many of the K-12 schools are responding the way that the university has. Schools are closed. Everything's moving online. Governor Abbott closed Texas schools on March 31st. Just this Friday, he announced that schools will remain closed to the rest of the school year. Texas joins 35 other states now that are being closed throughout the remainder of the school year. Worldwide, if 90% of all the world schools are closed, we've got school closures now in 185 different countries. The latest number I saw come through UNESCO showed 1.6 billion children are out of school at this very moment. That's absolutely unprecedented by the widest margin we've ever seen. I mean, that's especially unprecedented in the U.S. We've never seen this type of thing. It's completely uncharted territory. So I think where K-12 may be a little different than higher ed is regarding the preparation and response. It's moved to distance learning. So at LU, like you mentioned, we kind of took it in stride. It wasn't our first rodeo. We've been online. We've been a leader in online. Many of our faculty have experience teaching online. That wasn't necessarily true for many of our K-12 counterparts. Even most universities across the country had some online experience. Even our residential campuses, they've had some online classes. They've got a wealth of experience. Higher education has been doing online education for over 30 years now, and there's a lot of studies and research that can validate that. But for K-12, it's a pretty much new experience. This is something that ago, for so many of the schools that didn't have any centralized infrastructure in place that could scale up quickly. And then very few of the teachers had that experience teaching online like ours did. So um, luckily, I guess, the pandemic hit right as many schools were on spring break or heading into spring break, so that gave them a week or two to prepare. But after that, they were uh, moving as fast as they could to try to get something going. And I think this experience we're seeing, the schools have responded to kind of a constant morphing and evolving of their plans as the scope and the challenge sets are changing in front of them, and their collective experience of K-12 is getting better at how to respond to this.
Yeah, for those listening, it's to put in perspective, Lamar University's roughly 16,000 students that were registered in the fall semester, about half of them are online. So our competency in this space, both in terms of the production side, preparation of curriculum, not to mention the technology, is obviously vastly better than most institutions that are first-time providers in this space. So, George, clearly there have been challenges in such a momentous move. What are some of the best examples of successes you've seen?
When this started, like I said, there's so many schools are scrambling to try to put something together with contingency planning to get it operational as fast as they could. Uh, we saw a number of Lamar University alumni doing some really amazing things. When I think about I was thinking about like successes. One of those is Dr. Barbara Ybarra, who's the Associate Superintendent for Teaching and Learning at Bryan ISD. Barbara's also an adjunct professor for us in the Digital Learning and Leading program. And Bryan ISD and Barbara Ybarra, Dr. Ybarra did an amazing job. They have Bryan ISD has generally serves a lower socioeconomic demographic. About 76% of their student population is on free and reduced lunch. When their school closed, they were one of those that didn't have an LMS in place. They had a plan that they might get an LMS over maybe the next year and a half, but they really hadn't moved to that. They
Learning
hadn't taken
management
action on it.
system, you may want to offer up what LMS means.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, when the pandemic hit, they purchased the LMS, and they were up and running within the first week. They had students enrolling by the end of the semester. By the end of the not the end of the semester, by the end of the second week. I mean, that was pretty amazing. They didn't have to just get the LMS up either. I mean, they got it up for not just the main population; they got it up for everybody. That's including all of the 504 supports, what we call 504 supports for students that have learning challenges such as dyslexia. They had support adaptive technologies up for blind or deaf who might be needing assistive technologies to participate fully in the class experience. They somehow were able to get all the parent packs up online in English and Spanish. One of the most amazing things that happened out of that experience, they did 1,200 teacher trainings
Hmm.
just online in 1 week. I mean, that's unheard of to get that many teachers trained that fast to get up and going.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, in a school like Bryan ISD, like so many schools, they have a significant digital divide between the students who have online access at home and those who don't. So BISD looked at, they have about 16,000 students overall. They went and they looked at the family units, and they realized there's about, well, not about, but there were 8,972 family units. Then they went and surveyed the number of computers, devices that they had within the district, and they realized they had about 9,000 devices. So Bryan ISD went in every classroom, lab, closet. They pulled every device that they had, sanitized them, and deployed them so that every family unit in the district would have at least one device to be able to connect into the online learning management system. So it wasn't a perfect solution, but at least you had one device per family. You still have students sharing devices, but that was at least every device, every family having something.
Yeah.
The other issue was with networks. Um, so the school added Wi-Fi repeaters that are pointing into the neighborhoods, trying to broadcast the Wi-Fi as far as they could into the neighborhoods. They worked with the city to get the school network to be broadcast across all the city buildings. Worked with a local cable provider to be able to get 60 days of free access to any school in the city so that they could connect into to the to the municipal Wi-Fi, the municipal internet service. Brought in a help desk for students and parents, a place for drop-offs and repairs, anything that the students needed to be able to participate online, and all of that happening within 2 weeks. Getting that up so that when the
Mm,
students came back from spring break, that
that's stunning.
it's I can't imagine the amount of work that went on. The leadership that Dr. Ybarra took with that team, and the whole group of administrators there at Bryan ISD coming together is amazing. If you look at the results of that, as of yesterday, they did a presentation to the school board yesterday. 91.5% of all the students at Bryan ISD are online and working. That's really
Wow.
remarkable
Wow.
considering that so many, 75% of the school was on free and reduced lunch, had trouble having access to devices, and then they're up and going. It's working really well across all the grade levels too. There's hardly any difference between elementary students, the number of elementary students that are online and working, middle school students are online and working, and students in high school that are online and
Mm,
working. Um, as I've had the chance to reach out and talk to other alumnus across the country, across the state, this is this is representative of what so many of them are doing. Just as I said before, the amount of work that it took to pull something off like this in 2 weeks is astonishing. I think that's a great success story. It tells a success story that tells about the type and quality of leaders that we've been able to put out. I'm very proud of them. Um, it's more than just the alums. We have a lot of faculty here that are pitching in. Almost immediately after that, we had Ken Young and Crystal Heinerman, who both are faculty in the Doctor of Education program. When the pandemic hit, they immediately went online to Facebook and offered to help any educator that wanted to know how to teach online, how to teach online. They didn't ask if they should do that; they just did it, and I love that type of effort. That's just remarkable. Another amazing faculty member here at Lamar University is Dr. Tulissa Thibodeau. Um, Lamar University is privileged to collaborate with Apple on a program that's called the Community Education Initiatives Program, where we work with Apple in 8 school districts across Texas with about 50 teachers in those school districts. Those teachers are enrolled in a program where they're earning 12 hours of credit in a year-long program as they learn how to code and to teach code to their students. That program runs under Dr. Talissa Thibodeau with work that is supported by Dr. Dwayne Harapnik and 3 amazing mentor teachers, Mike Yakovatsky from Capel and Douglas Kiang from Hawaii and Karen Thomas, who's up in Illinois. Each of those have an elementary, middle school, and high school cohort that they coach and mentor. So as soon as the pandemic hit, Dr. Thibodeau and that team began working with those grade level cohorts to adapt all the online, to adapt the programming that they have to be able to get it online, to be able to look at alternative teaching methods, ways that they can continue this program of teaching code in schools, even though the students wouldn't be in the computer labs or wouldn't have access to the school facilities. They shared a lot of their ideas and best practices, and were probably some of the first and earliest movers in helping get teachers moving to being productive in an online environment and a distance environment. As evidence of that, after shortly after that, Apple held a series of town hall events where they were highlighting strategies and challenges and solutions for teaching during the pandemic. And the teachers that are in that program were sharing some of the most amazing stories, some of the most amazing successes that they were getting. And I was just so proud of what those teachers were doing, what those mentor teachers were doing, and what Dr. Thibodeau and Harapnik were doing with that program. So it's remarkable work.
If there's ever any question about the dedication of faculty, it is clear during a period of crisis how this community of people have stepped up the way they have and have
Mhm.
made such an amazing impact in areas where many of them are just getting their feet wet. So it's a testament to their dedication. George and I were at a conference for Apple where we were talking about this very program he was talking about with the credit hours that the students can learn toward a master's degree. And I cannot tell you the reception we received at that event about what he's doing and the great impact that he's having with this initiative. So congratulations. You mentioned schools turning to technology and a number of examples of what LU faculty and staff and alumni are doing to help during this time of crisis. What is that looking like on the ground? How effective is technology in school continuance?
Um, you know, I, Compared to higher education, I think there's several major differences. We already talked a little bit about the need for school-wide infrastructure and training that higher education had, and K-12 was sort of scrambling to get in many cases. If they didn't have it already, pretty much every K-12 school in the country right now has something like Google Classroom or Apple Classroom or Microsoft Teams. They have a learning management system like Blackboard or Canvas or Schoology. They're using video conference apps from Facebook or WebEx and Zoom. It's it's they're adapting. They're getting there.
Okay. Supporting enterprise-wide software is no small task, as you know. Are schools keeping up to that task?
It, Actually, I think they're doing pretty well, all things considered. You know, ironically, I think it's the larger enterprise tools that are showing some of the signs of stress.
Hmm.
Any of you that have been working from home, you've noticed that even tools like WebEx and Zoom have really struggled with being able to stay connected. Sometimes those links are going down. Zoom's had a lot of privacy issues lately. There's a Zoom bombing is a thing now where
Yeah, yeah.
random people sort of show up into your Zoom account and or to your Zoom meeting. And of course, you can imagine what that looks like once a lot of high school kids learn how to do something like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so, the big companies like Apple and Google and Microsoft, they're doing pretty good getting their scaling their infrastructure to meet demand, but they're bringing on so many new customers overnight. It's even hard for those companies to provide the type of training and initial support for schools that they might normally want to. If you're in the market for iPads or Chromebooks, those are increasingly short supply right now. It's the education community and parents across the country are buying those up for their kids. Um, we see a lot of schools that have made a decision to go with a tool and it didn't really work for them, and now they're making a decision that they're going to have to go a different direction. That the you know that and even though they thought it might be a great tool because it was good for business, it might not necessarily be that good for education. And they've sort of learned that now. And teachers are having to go through sort of a second training session now, even in the same month, learning a new tool. Um, I think from an IT perspective, it really demonstrates that we need to not just assume that because it's a great tool for business that it's going to work for education. I think
Mhm.
we need school administrators who understand the importance of cybersecurity and what makes a platform best for learning. And I keep reflecting back on how that's just a great area for LU. We've got so much experience here at the university in our faculty and our ability to share that with the people who are coming to us. as students and going out to take on education leadership careers. It's definitely something we can help with.
Well, we've talked a bit about technology. Let's talk about the curriculum. What about the lessons themselves? You just can't take the same course you've been teaching face to face and just plop it online without some modifications. So talk a bit about that, will you?
Uh, yeah, there's a new word that's going around in the education world that's called panic goji. It's kind of what teachers are doing right now in the short term, and they kind of panic. What can we do to get something online? And now we know we need to go back and really think about what needs to be online best. One of our alums, Dr. Christy Busey in South Carolina, she talks a lot about the experience of learners needing to have content, have curriculum that's more focused and prioritized. You know, I think she wisely said that you can't treat this as a normal learning experience. It needs to be different. It's something that she's absolutely right about. We know that in higher education, our colleagues at K-12 are really picking that up and moving that forward, trying to figure out what's the right way to engage a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old and how to work with the content and the curriculum. Um, a big part of that is shifting our instructional practices from being teacher-centered to being more student-centered. We've been working with a number of people to help bring some student-centered educational opportunities to them during the pandemic. Like earlier this year, we met up with a great group of people from a company called On Purpose Solutions. Michael Dresner and Larry Weitzman did a lot of work in the National Basketball Association, worked in digital media, had sold out a company that they were working with and looking for something else to do, wanted a way to get back into education, and started working with Lamar University to help us find a way to get that really great learning experience, those student-centered learning experiences in front of students and teachers. So over the last couple of weeks after the pandemic hit, we've been focused on how to get high quality student-centered content in front of students and teachers for free. So there's several of these solutions that are available right now. One of the first ones is in digital robotics. So this is a virtual simulator for what would normally be a Lego EV3 robot kit. What a student might be doing with the physical device in their science classroom. Now they have the ability to do that fully virtualized online using the same code sets that they might have been working with before. You can use a block-based coding thing like you might be seeing on the screen here, all the way up into more code-based languages. These are physics compatible, so everything that the physical robot can do can be simulated in the virtual space. But on the virtual side, there's some things that you can do on the virtual side that you can't do on the physical space with the physical robot. Like we can put these robots in an outer space environment and work in zero gravity. We can be able to have competitions, for instance, where students don't have to travel; they can compete virtually. So that's one in virtual robotics. Another one in a time of a public health crisis, who better to work with than a public health organization? So we've been working with an organization called Hip Hop Public Health. Hip Hop Public Health was originally started by the chief of staff of neurology at Columbia Medical Center, Olashide Williams, who's just an amazing person, a COVID-19 survivor himself, right in the middle of the front lines in one of the most impacted areas of the country. And so Hip Hop Public Health is looking at how to create public health messages and be able to put those in front of students, how to connect them with many of the influencers and people that our students are connected to. So let me give you an example here of some of the stuff that Hip Hop Public Health has produced, and then I'll talk a little bit about how we might, or how anybody could be able to introduce this into a classroom learning experience.
All right.
Shout out to the hip hop public health. All the healthcare workers on the front line. Together, we can make a difference.
What's good, y'all? This is Doug E. Fresh coming at you live and direct. All of y'all out there, I got a couple of things I want to talk to y'all about. Wash your hands, everybody, and everybody, wash your hands.
20 seconds.
Come on, wash your hands, everybody, and everybody, wash your hands.
20
My people
seconds more.
uptown, wash your hands. My people downtown, wash your hands.
20
People
seconds
from
or
the
more.
East Coast, wash your hands. People from the West Coast, wash your hands. That's right.
First and foremost, please listen close. Take your time, wash. Use a lot of soap from the front to the back, back to the front. Sing the hook where you at. That's exactly what we want. If you decide to leave, please take heed. Talk a social distance, at least 6 feet. On a bus or the train, riding in your car. The further you're away, then the better off you are. 20 seconds or more. You gotta be able to wash your hands like you never ever washed them before. 20 seconds or more. Try to wait, you'll make the greatest mistake. You need to wash them when you enter the door. 20 seconds or more. Take your time, sing a song, spit a rhyme. When you finish, you can put on some gloves. 20 seconds or more. It's very important to wash your hands. You're protecting everybody you love.
Wash your hands, everybody, and everybody, wash your hands.
20 seconds
Come
or more.
on, wash your hands, everybody, and everybody, wash your hands.
20
People
seconds
from
or
the
more.
Midwest, wash your hands.
So you
Yeah,
get an idea.
I go wash my hands, George. I'll be right back.
Well, it's a message that everybody needs to know right now. We've got
Yeah.
to be reminded that we need to wash our hands, keep that social distancing at 6 feet or more. So here's it's a great message that students need to be consuming, but it's also a great opportunity to have them remix it. So there's 2 challenges that are out there for students right now. One, take that video and then remix it. Film your own students, film your own school washing your hands, put it back out there and put it back out on the social media channels. Be able to, I mean, Ken, you probably do this all the time with Doug E. Fresh, but it's not an opportunity that I get to be able to interact with those types of people. So, there's superstars who get to do super good stuff in the community. We love to see students be able to take that. So here's a hip hop version. Let's get a Tejana version. Let's do a doo-wop version. Let's get one and honky tonk. I mean, let's figure out how to take that, adapt it to every different type of music genre that's out there. I think the students would love to have that type of opportunity. So how do we get moving with that? What are the kinds of things that are happening? We've got more information about that coming up next week. If you're interested, or you know somebody that might be interested in participating in the digital robotics program, we have a meeting coming up on April 29th at 4 p.m. Central Time that'll get them more information about that. If you go to the Lamar Center for Educational Innovation and Digital Learning website, which is lamar.edu/educational innovation, you'll find more about the hip hop public health challenges and more information about the digital robotics program there. We've been working not just there, we've also been working around the world, helping with teachers in all different types of countries. So if you're joining us or watching this from an international location, there's also some opportunities that we might be interested in being a part of that Lamar University is assisting with. So we've been working with UNESCO International Institute for Capacity Building in Africa. So at 6 a.m. local time, 2 p.m. East Africa time tomorrow, there'll be another workshop, another session on how to use distance learning in higher education during this time of closures. And then we've had a series of webinars. Our 6th one is coming up from UNESCO, running out of Paris, and it'll also be at 6 a.m. Central Time. That's talking about how to do different types of teachers interventions and opportunities to work in this time of crisis. So let me see if I get the next slide up that's got the information about those webinars. And number 6 is thinking about how are we going to get back to school and get everything reopened. If you go to that website, that's listed there at the UNESCO.org COVID-19 Educational Responses website. There are 5 other webinars that have already happened. and then the sixth one comes up live this Friday. So a number of resources, a number of things that the Lamar University community is assisting with and making available to teachers.
Well, an amazing portfolio of activity that I might go back to the digital robotics for just a second. That also is a platform where I know you're talking about a virtual robotics competition, and it would
Yes,
also have a global platform, providing children that otherwise would not have an opportunity to participate in the normal robotics competition where you're assembling with materials that you would have to purchase, but which often gets very expensive. You can provide the opportunity for virtual robotic competition to really anybody who can get onto a platform and interface with the internet. So
that's
that's an
right.
exciting opportunity.
That's right. And because once we are working online, we have the ability to use adaptive technology so students who might not be able to participate with the physical robot have the ability now to do that using assistive technologies, adaptive technologies that they can in the virtual simulator. I mean, it, your local school to be able to compete with the school from the other side of the planet is just something that you're not going to have the travel budget for. But when you're doing it online, you just have to set it up
Yeah,
and make it happen.
that's so exciting. So we know in higher ed, being successful in online learning requires maturity and focus. I'd assume that that has to be a challenge in working with K through 12 students, especially so at a time of emergency. The struggle in balancing life and school is something we see with our students after a major disaster. Would you speak to that, George?
Yeah, a majority of the students um, do need assistance. K-12 students need to have some scaffolding, especially those who are in elementary and middle school. They need to have guidance. We've got a clip of a screenshot that shows a student, kind of responding about, now having to learn how to maintain her own schedule, how to do work without having to be reminded and reinforced by an adult or a teacher. That's something that students are having to learn now in junior high, having to learn in elementary school, and it's difficult for them in some cases. Most schools are expecting that parents need to come in and step in and help with much of the classroom management that teachers used to do. For some parents, that's really difficult. You've got parents that might have multiple children. In one of the Apple Town halls, we were hearing somebody talk about their school district has a policy that every teacher needs to check in with each parent once a week. Well, if it's as a parent that has three kids, those three kids have seven teachers each. That's 21 parent teacher conferences that have to take place in a single week. That's a full time job for the parent, just keeping up with the parent teacher conferences. So, it's a struggle. If parents are working in healthcare or essential businesses or delivery services, they're working overtime. They have very little time or energy left over for their kind of homeschool duties. Other parents may have lost a job, and they're using their time trying to find another one, filing for unemployment. It's a stressful time in the home. You've got other parents that may be having other external stresses in their life. I mean, I think, can you imagine trying to be a parent, a single parent of multiple kids? You're out of work and then you test positive for the virus, and
Mm.
trying to manage that household, it's got to be amazingly tough. We looked at what some of the teachers are doing to keep their kids motivated, what the teachers are doing to step in and try to continue to engage the kids online the way that they did in the classroom, but having to adapt. So let me give you an example of Tara Bordeaux. She's an amazing teacher, one of our teachers in the Apple CEI program out of Austin ISD. One teacher, Texas Teacher of the Year 2 years ago. Absolutely one of the best types of teachers that you could find in a school anywhere. Tara teaches media arts, something that she wanted to do, something that would be therapeutic. I wanted to find something for her students to do that would be therapeutic, something that kept them learning and working academically, but also something that allowed them to be able to be done semi-independently, where they could build on some of those self-motivation skills. So Instead of using some of the composition books that they had been doing in class, they shifted to using digital composition books. And she asked the students in the digital composition books, think about this amazing period that we're living in right now. You have you have the power to document this time period. This is a point in history that will be a watershed moment for decades or maybe even centuries. Let's think about how to take a photograph that represents what a day in the life of this looked like, or draw an image that was symbolizing what you were feeling, and capture the moments with interviews or portraits or uh, uh, stories that you're writing about your family, being able to record a story that your family is telling about a similar event in their lives and previous, or a story that they're experiencing now, and create a song about this, create some art about this. Um, if you think about like the Diary of Anne Frank, or the writing of the Freedom Writers who were kind of writing in that moment, and this is that time, and trying to inspire the students to take that. So here's some examples of some of the work from Tara's students. If you look at the screen, you'll be able to see some examples of their writing, of their creativity, of some of their expression. So one student had this idea of being able to create coloring pages. They like one of the things that keeps families going, and extreme episodes of boredom during the quarantine is you can color some of their favorite things, which are wiener dogs and flowers. Another example of student work is looking at some photography that they're doing, where they're trying to capture a little bit about what that moment looks like. This next one really struck me, and kind of in the heart about how to express maybe a little bit about what this looks like, where you see somebody's teardrop on hope. And then, we can't all be deep as students do. Sometimes they like to take a more lighter approach. And here's an example of some great wiener dog art, which is really, truly amazing. Okay, maybe let's see if we can get there. Yeah, there we go.
All right.
There, there you go.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, it's really pretty cool.
Yeah.
There you go, wiener dog to wiener dog. Christy Musey, back in Charleston, South Carolina, she performs daily check-ins with students, over the phone. What's going on? They created a family support hotline, and the idea being on family support. So, looking at what a hotline for parents or students to be able to connect on homework, something that's looking at their emotional wellness, where even a parent can check in with a counselor to be able to get help for what's going on. IT resources for parents and students, so all on one number, and which I thought was ironic, because after after dealing with technology issues, you might need to go back and talk to somebody about some emotional counseling or something like that. There were two words or two phrases that their school adopted, thinking about how to deal with this. And the first one was grace over grades. Right now we need to keep our students in mind, and we need to give them the space to work through this kind of emotionalness that is happening. And the other is, right now, this is about relationships over rigor. Um, we've got to stay connected to those students to keep them motivated to come in. And the way they're going to stay connected and the way they're going to stay motivated is through those connections with the teacher. And if we ostracize them, we've lost that opportunity. Powerful phrases. Cynthia May at Fort Bend ISD had a really great story to tell. So early on, she was talking about her work to reach out to parents. And she said, I want to call parents when their child does something good. So, every time they do something good, I'm going to pick up the phone and call the parent. And so, she realized early on that if you're always calling the parent with good news about their child, they're going to take that call. And now when she needs to connect with the parents, they take that call. They're working with her because she built that relationship. She said, students won't learn from somebody they don't trust, and you've got to earn that trust with the whole family. If the parent doesn't trust them, the parent doesn't trust the teacher, that's going to show through to the kids. Um, you know, Lamar University has one of the most amazing counseling programs in the country. It's definitely one of the largest in the nation. We've got great counselors who are out there, our alums who are doing stuff during this time of crisis, and they're doing some really amazing things. Here's Jamie Way from Garland, Texas. She set up time for students to be able to connect online by grade level just to socialize with their peers. So you think, well, that happens all the time in social media, but that doesn't happen for everybody. It doesn't happen for everyone, and this brings the structure of the school into the socialization. And you also have the online tools that allow students with that might be blind or deaf to still be able to continue to socialize using the technology to be assistive in that socialization. Tiffany Ellis, who's from St. Augustine, Florida, she started a video group chat with her fifth graders called Tell Me Something Good. So let's not focus on the negative. Let's just focus on something that's positive that's going on right now. Dwayne Ham from Richardson, Texas, worked out put together a Google form. So, students need to ask about access to food or school supplies, or if they've been given new responsibilities at home, and in order to be able to get through the day, this is something where he can connect people in need with people who have means, how to get help to them. So sends messages every day, little silly videos to brighten their day, make sure that he's connecting with those students. It's a great, great way to keep that connection with students. So, overall, I just think about, I think this pandemic, if it's shown anything, is that our teachers are so much more than just the people who deliver content. They are the social backbone of so many of these classes, and they build these amazing relationships and inspire these students, and they're doing just truly incredible things to try to continue those relationships and keep those going even at a distance.
Well, the evidence of compassion and humanity are stunning. So thank you for sharing that. Universities obviously have a larger responsibility than just delivering education. You talked about that a bit here, and we have the duty of care of students on campus. That's even more so in K through 12 and local parentis. How are schools working to provide the social support for students at a distance?
Um, you know, there's a number of things that the schools are doing to try to reach out to students' holistic needs. Many outside of K-12 might have underestimated the role that schools play in just providing basic food and nutrition. One of the things that happened early on was schools realized, we've got to continue to provide these free and reduced lunches for kids because the families are absolutely dependent upon that. Or, if the parents are working, who's going to be there to provide the meals to the kids? So, schools have figured out how to do pickups where you can come by and pick up school lunches. They've got drive-bys where school buses go into neighborhoods that have the food and supplies. Those school buses work as bookmobiles. They're picking up homework and handing out paper packets to kids who don't have access to the online tools. So many of the schools looked at other kinds of things that they could do to take care of kids holistically. Story time, story times online are something that we see a lot. Stories that, even if you can't do online, where teachers literally drive to the student's house and will read those students a story from their car so that the students have somebody to interact with. I ran across an example where the teachers were doing a story time like a drive-in movie theater. So they would get up on top of the bus and all the cars would come up to the bus and the teachers are reading the stories through a megaphone
That's
on
great.
top of the bus. It's amazing how creative people can be when they really care about connecting back to those young learners. The schools are the safety nets for many of those students, and they're still trying to provide as many of those safety nets as possible. And even when many of those teachers themselves need to have some safety nets, I think. And That's just it's something that schools really are taking uh, the mandate of caring for the holistic learner very seriously.
The part of this that we're not talking about is that these teachers, these faculty, are dealing with their own set of challenges in their own home environment, and some of them are obviously concerned about their own social distancing, and some have vulnerabilities in terms of their own health, and so all of that's factoring into this equation as well. You
Mhm.
mentioned, you already mentioned it about the digital divide, and it's not inconsequential. There must be significant gaps in access.
Absolutely. If the pandemic has demonstrated anything, right, I think it's that it's the essentiality of digital technology. The ability for us to continue to work, to be able to socialize, to be able to connect with our family. Church services are online. Everything is online, and if you don't have access to that, you have become even more ostracized, disconnected from the rest of the world. I mean, from a cultural anthropology perspective, this is truly amazing. The researcher in me thinks about all the kinds of things that they're to study, but um, you know, it it's online is almost absolutely critical for us to be able to function in the world we live in today. And so, for the schools that have a one-to-one program, they're by far the most advantaged students because they had a platform already up and ready to go. They had the students that had access. They were able to begin working online immediately, even if they didn't have internet at home. At least they had a device to work with. Payson Creech is one of our students at Elgin, one of our teachers at Elgin ISD, and she talks about a student in her class who has to walk to a gas station on US 290 in Elgin, Texas, so that she can log on to the Wi-Fi that's there at the gas station in order for her to work and participate in class. And Patience makes a really strong case that now more than ever is the time to consider the internet as a utility. We need to ensure that it reaches everyone, and especially for those learners, so that everyone has the advantage to participate fully, and not just those who are affluent enough to be able to have that internet in their home. Bus hotspots, that's another way that so many schools are working to close that digital divide. Seems like every district in the country now has outfit Wi-Fi access points on their buses, and they run the buses into all the different types of and all of the students' neighborhoods that they can, so that the students have a place where they can walk and be able to get to the internet. So um, it's clearly demonstrated that there's a need for students to have access to some sort of digital device in this coming or in this current crisis. I think that we're going to see a lot of push to one-to-one following. But even now, we've got to do something about that. Cynthia May at Fort Bend ISD said, you know what? You look around your house. You probably have a laptop that's been discarded, a tablet that you don't use. There's kids out there who desperately need that to participate in education. Find a way that you can donate that device to the school, just so the child has some sort of a device in which they can continue to go to school with. If you have Wi-Fi in your house, especially if you live in a rural area, think about allowing kids to be able to use your Wi-Fi to be able to get on to school, to be able to complete their work, so that they're not having to hike all the way down to the gas station at the end of the road, where might be able to just use yours in this time of need. One of the things that we're doing in the Bowen area. So I was talking to Dean Spina. He's talking about our provost, Brenda Nichols. How are we going to reappropriate the Lamar University TV station to help deliver lessons to kids in Beaumont who don't necessarily have Wi-Fi? All creative ways to solve a really challenging problem, which is how do we close this digital divide and do it as fast as we can?
Yeah, we know that from our own experiences at LU that disruptions to the learning environment take a toll on students. We can assume about the impact on the educational effectiveness of the K through 12 students during this year is likely to be meaningful. Comment about that, will you?
Um, it's not entirely unprecedented. We've had disruptions localized disruptions. We never had a national disruption like this, but like with Hurricane Katrina and even in Beaumont, we've had issues where Hurricane Harvey and Imelda have closed schools or caused students to have to move to different schools. Um, you know, um, it's gonna be tough. I think if you look at some of the research that came out of Hurricane Katrina, New Orleans had to close their schools for the entirety of the fall semester in 2005. Those students went to Baton Rouge, they went to Houston. In many cases, those students were at schools that were technically ranked higher than the ones that they had left in. They were supposed to be better schools than the ones they were at. You would think that because the interruption wasn't that bad, they were immediately enrolled in other schools within weeks. They were, less disruption in the amount of time that students are out of the classroom right now. They were going to better schools. Maybe the impact of learning wouldn't have been that bad, but it'd be wrong about that. I mean, what Doug Harris at Tulane found was um, it took 2 years of recovery to get those students back to where they were before the event happened. And you think, well, that might be most traumatic to the little ones. It was actually more traumatic to the older students. Students who are going through adolescence, it's a period of rapid change, and you know, students, teenagers especially, who experience adversity um, during that time could be really highly detrimental to that learning experience. That young children, they tend to be a little more resilient to disruption. If they have a good family structure, they lean onto that family structure for times of support. Teenagers, often they're looking for their peers, they're looking for mentors, and that's the people who they've been now. That's a really traumatic event. There's just so much that's changed in their lives, and it's not going to go back to normal for a while. They don't know even what today will bring. More or less, will it be school next fall? What's their social life? What about that person that they were thinking about asking out to the prom that's not going to happen anymore? Do their parents have a job? Is there going to be food at the store? How's the supply of toilet paper holding out today?
Yeah.
So anyway, it's really hard to focus on learning when you're really concerned. Your main concerns are way lower on that Maslow scale of hierarchy of needs. You're maybe concerned about your fundamental survival right now, and that's even though that you may have all the access in the world to really great learning materials, it's going to be hard for that person to focus on it just because of the disruption that's going on. We saw it before. If you look at what happened to high school graduation rates, the number of people who are applying and going into college, it's likely going to take a hit,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah, you're right. We're going to turn to a few questions, George.
Okay.
We got one here. Joe asks, how can retired educators help with the online education effort? Thoughts?
Say that again. So go
How
ahead.
can retired educators
Oh,
help with the online education effort?
that's something that's happened a lot. People coming out of retirement, you saw that happen in the medical community.
Yeah.
One of the things, the pieces of advice that we got is schools are absolutely looking for any volunteer that they can find. Connect with your local school district. Ask them what you can do to help. Check with them to see if you can host a reading group that could be done outside your window, where local kids in the neighborhood can come and be a part of that. See if there's a way where you can go online and be able to assist. Ken, you mentioned this before. Teachers are also having to raise their own kids and work with a lot of extra stuff on their plate. Anybody who can come in and be able to help carry and shoulder some of that instructional load is important. So check with your local school district. They absolutely know how to put you into use.
Vernon asked, and both you and I can answer this, I guess, asked how LU students have reacted to the move fully online. Obviously, in your case, your students are already online, so they knew that was the way they were going to have their curriculum delivered. By and large, my reaction, at least from what I'm seeing in the undergraduate population, which is principally really what I think this question might be more germane to, the students have done a good job of adapting and adjusting to the online experience. And likewise, our faculty, mindful of the fact that while the education faculty and a number of other faculty around the university have delivered courses online, not everybody has. And so many of them have had to adapt and adjust. And that's when you talked about Ken Young and the rest of his team that have been working diligently with our the K through 12 environment. But we also have faculty here that have been working with our own faculty and helping them with their online experience, and that's been greatly appreciative. And that was a grassroots effort, started at the faculty senate level, and has reached, I think, levels where it's really quite laudatory, the quality of the work they've been doing and the support they've been providing.
Mhm.
I have a question.
Yes.
So we've talked about problems, and there are many of them. There are many challenges, and I actually worked with a fellow one time who said, "Well, problems are just really opportunities to excel." But there's going to be a legacy of what has happened in this transition to online, which will remain. And there will be positive consequences going forward of how it'll become an integral part of the educational platform. Do you want to comment on that?
I, um, I do have a comment on that. One, I think, as I said before, I think we're going to see a lot of interest in going one-to-one, a lot of interest in making sure that we have the infrastructure in place. I was having a conversation before this meeting tonight. We have fire drills in schools for a reason, because in a time of emergency, we don't need to be figuring it out as we go. We need to know how to take action. I think that's something that every school needs to do. Is we need to have some sort of experience where every teacher and every student is doing something online during the school year. So if we have to do something like this again, we're prepared. We're not stumbling around in the dark again. We just are able to, like what happened at Lamar, we just pick up and we're able to go. It's not something that's going to be easy, but it's something that the transition can be done a lot easier if we already have that experience and the infrastructure in place.
Now, I know the answer. I got a question here about many of the students that you're working with had taken their curriculum online, so they had a facility for the online delivery, and as a result, were better able to make that adjustment. And that's been a great advantage as they're taking on this task. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Well, you I would say this. I would say this about almost all of our alums, our recent alums at Lamar University, our education alums. We are one of the largest providers of graduate education programs in the country. Those programs are delivered online. Those people have had experience teaching online, or at least had experience being a student online. They've seen what really good education looks like modeled in front of them. Um, they are enrolled in coursework even right now. And many of those teachers that we talked about today, they're in an online program. They are part of it. The kinds of things that just make sense to them are because they have that experience, and capacity to be able to get to the tools, to be able to get to the online platforms. I feel like I botched the answer to that question, other than to
No,
say.
no, no. I think that's right on. I think that's right on. But there's also an element of we're going to see a likelihood of some hybrid applications in classrooms as well, where the technology legacy that we have deployed in the context of this solution going forward is going to have a meaningful impact in the educational platform as we go forward.
Well, yeah, let me just, this is a great opportunity to give a shout out to some of the faculty in the doctoral program. That doctorate of education leadership program is where many of our superintendents and associate superintendents for curriculum instruction have got their credentials. That's a program that they have had experience in as online teachers. Dr. Yabara said, I sent, as soon as this happened, I sent a text to my former professor, Dr. Kay Shelton, and you just said, thank you so much for, you know, helping me learn how to do this. You know, I didn't know when I took fundamentals of distance education that I was going to need to do this, but thank you for offering that class. You know, it's just so many of those people that I talked to along the way said, you know, if it hadn't been for Lamar University, I don't know that I could have done this, because having that experience myself, having, you know, and the work that they're doing, working with us as we're helping to bring those online environments into their schools is that's just amazing.
Well, the work you're doing has got to be gratifying, and I want to thank you for the time you've taken to visit with us tonight. You're a font of information in this space, and I think with that, I think our time is up, and I'm going to turn it back to Juan. Thank you, George.
You bet.
Thank you both for this fascinating discussion and for taking the time for this important presentation. And thank all of you for joining this evening and being a part of our digital gatherings. I hope all of you stay well, and I hope that you enjoy the video that's about to play, put together by our marketing team. Thank you.
I want to help people.
I want to be a part of the solutions of tomorrow.
I want to bring innovations in times of need.
I want to turn my passion for helping others into action.
I want to be the voice that shares truth with the world.
In times of uncertainty, being a nurse is how I will make a difference.
My professors have taught me human resources is about putting people first.
Through the power of mechanical engineering, I've learned how to better the world around me.
Because of Lamar University, I've been given the opportunity to change my world.
To change our world.
Our moment is here.
Our moment is now.
Make the most of it at Lamar University.